Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. I just want to start by thanking Professor Munavu for a rousing speech and for also setting me up, because I'm also going to talk about global collaboration and cooperation today. So also thank the organizers of HiCool for bringing this together and also for inviting me here. I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and proudly representing Australia here today in China. My name is Dickie Currer. I'm going to talk to you today about an innovation hack that I learned from traveling to over 100 of the world's startup ecosystems. Before I do, let's go back in time a little bit to 1988. When I was just 8 years old. So hopefully those of you who do maths can now work out how old I am. But here I am dressed as an astronaut. My mum put together a homemade outfit for me. But at this age, what really happened was my life changed. I got an atlas as a gift from my godmother, Sally. And within 6 months, it's my best friend was this atlas. So I learned I learned every capital city in the world. I learned every country flag. I obsessed over the atlas. And it took this 8-year-old boy who lived in a small village in the north of England and a working class background to an adventure and a wanderlust and a passion for seeing the world. I'm sure you all know the philosopher Lao Tzu. He said, "Journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." I think it's a great message for entrepreneurs. Often that first step is the hardest from 0 to 1. But for me, it started off my journey, and that single step was that atlas. That atlas took me to all over the world. I first went to South America when I was 18 years old for 6 months. I traveled to Southeast Asia, the Far East, the US, across Europe, and then 11 years ago, I moved from England to Australia, where I'm now an Australian citizen. And now proud to say that I've been to 69 countries, 6 continents, and over 300 cities in the world. That's just the start, I think, of my travel. I've done 0 to 1, and now it's 1 to 10 for the rest of my life. I come to China for the first time in March. China was always the place that I was so curious about growing up, had so much wonder for the country, and I had the pleasure of coming to China in March for the first time, starting my travels in Beijing, actually. I traveled through Xi'an, Sichuan province. I love spicy food, so I had the best time in Chengdu and Chongqing, to Guilin and the Li River, and across to Shanghai. And I've since been to China on 3 occasions since, and really fallen in love with the country. While I was there, I also connected with the local tech and innovation and startup ecosystems. I got to visit HiCool on my 3rd day in China, so it feels a real honor to have come full circle now and to be speaking here in front of you all. It took me a while to realize what my travels meant and what I was really doing, but what I realized was, as I was traveling the world, I was collecting different perspectives, different ways of thinking, different ways of doing, and becoming what I call a global citizen. You'll see the definition here. A global citizen for me is someone with a mindset and a sense of responsibility to act within the broader global community, someone who recognizes interconnectedness with others and the world's environment. And that's what I was becoming as I traveled. It took me a while to reflect on that and realize, and now I'm super confident, and that's what the purpose of my travels is. But that curiosity and that young boy that wanted to travel and wanted to see the world and learn cultures had to find a purpose for that. When I first, I went to law school and became an immigration and asylum lawyer. I worked in the education space, the entertainment space, and traveled for passion and pleasure and curiosity. But it took me a while to realize how to make that into a purpose. 5 years ago, I started working in the innovation entrepreneurship ecosystem. I took a job helping to support a community which helps entrepreneurs and founders in Australia, in Melbourne. And again, my life changed as I entered that role. I noticed that there was amazing things happening in Australia. We had great founders. We had great early stage ventures, but we missed an international and global mindset. And we missed the collaborative tissue and the connections to actually help entrepreneurs from across the world and in Australia look globally. So I took that on as my purpose, and the purpose for all my travels and all my adventures. And I became what I like to call an ecosystem builder, which is someone who works to develop and foster supportive conditions for entrepreneurship and innovation within a community or region. And I know there's plenty of ecosystem builders here today, like Professor Munavu, who just spoke as well. So that was my purpose. And now my ecosystem itself, about 4 years ago, I got a nickname, which was the hype man for Australian startups and Australian innovation. Those of you who don't know what a hype man is, it's usually the person on stage that will cheer, get the crowd excited. If there's a DJ or a rapper, someone that really helps to promote and cheer and champion things that are happening. So people started calling me that in the industry. Naturally, a year later, I launched my business, Hype Man Media, which is really focused on helping to connect the world's global startup ecosystems and also to champion the things that are happening within those different regions around the world. We have the leading newsletter and content arm in Australia, which is called Hyped ANZ Startups. We have a global community called Hyped Global, which again tells stories around the world. And we started recently doing advisory work to help support those connections to happen. I'm also an advisor, a mentor to startups, an investor, and I run a global community called Tech Australia Advocates, which is the Australian arm of a 45-strong community of 40,000 tech leaders across the world. And this year I won my first award. I became the Victorian government, Australian government recognized me as an ecosystem hero, which was a real privilege. Over the last 18 months, during the launch of the business and the real seed phase of the business, I hit the road. I've spent about 15 months of the last 18 traveling, mostly across Asia. And what I realized as I traveled is I was seeing the same things play out over and over again. I was seeing the same problems within startup ecosystems that were being solved by the founders. I was seeing the same desire to solve them, both from those entrepreneurs, but also from governments, from societies living within those ecosystems, from the investors who are funding those ventures. But I was seeing the same tendency to work in isolation. The same thing that I discovered when I entered Australia. People weren't able to actually find how to think internationally. I was meeting founders that were working on the same problems across 10 different cities. Can you imagine if they all came together and solved that problems 10 times faster? Which is why I found my mission personally, which was to inspire 1 million entrepreneurs to think globally as they innovate. So thank you all in the room today for being a part of that 1 million. Yeah, I like a round of applause, thank you. Round of applause to yourself, I think, is the most important thing. So I want to talk today about the innovation hack that I've learned, which is cross-cultural innovation, which basically means when people come together across international borders and across cultures to actually work together, combine their different ways of thinking, different perspectives to create something incredible. I've got a few examples for you. So I was in Qingdao 3 weeks ago. I don't know if anyone's been to Qingdao, but if you haven't, you'll know it's very famous for the beer, China's beer city. We would call Tsingtao in the West, which I know is not the real name. But that's a great example of cross-cultural innovation taking place. The beer is brewed in a German way, using German purity laws. Germans do make the best beer, but it's China's incredible manufacturing prowess that has made it now Asia's biggest beer brand, with 18 billion bottles sold across 120 countries annually, and we find it everywhere in Australia. Another example is Ipoh White Coffee. Ipoh is a small city, town, about 2 hours north of Kuala Lumpur. I was there a few months ago. And they're famous as being one of the top 3 coffee towns in the world now. In the 1920s, Hainanese migrants moved to Malaysia. They struggled to find work. They didn't like the bitterness of the coffee that was there. So they actually took margarine and put it into the coffee brewing process, which created Ipoh White Coffee, which is now sold all over the globe and has now got Ipoh, put it on the map in terms of coffee and craft coffee drinkers. And it was a great cup of coffee. And the third example, again, relative to China, is a cochlear implant. It's invented by a professor from Melbourne, my home city, in 1978, Professor Graham Clark. He saw a seashell on the floor on the beach, and it inspired him to create a hearing aid, which has now impacted millions of people around the world. But it wasn't really until the manufacturing plant in Chengdu was established in 1995 where it was really able to supercharge its growth and reach millions of people and 50,000 Chinese patients as well. So that's my work at a conceptual level. I help to inspire people I help to talk about cross-cultural innovation and its importance. That's the macro level. At a micro level, I actually work quite closely with a lot of entrepreneurs to help that scaling process. I recently took part in a program. I've been a part of it for the last 3 or 4 years now, but this year heavily involved with my partners A-Case, who are in the room today. Shout out to Henry and the team. And the program's really focused on helping to take Australian startups from Melbourne, predominantly, the city of Melbourne are the main funder of the program, to Nanjing, China. So we take them through an acceleration process. We help them connect with partners, customers, government, and we help them to get market ready when they come to China. And we finished the program about a month ago in Nanjing and got to celebrate on stage. This year's focus, we had local partners, Jittery and Puko High Tech Zone, and it was put together by A-Case and C-Planet with the city of Melbourne backing it. So a real combination of government, private industry coming together to help solve problems across cultural borders. This year's program was focused on future city innovators and solving problems in 5 focus sectors that the Jiangsu government had actually picked out. They wanted problems solved in. So we went to market, we got startups to apply, we helped with the program, and we took the startups across into China, and a lot of those startups are now signing MOUs with partners in China and are solving local problems in the Jiangsu region. 3 examples of the startups that took part this year. We had Misty, which is a health tech company. They have a smart inhaler, which helps increase lung capacity by over 1.5 times. Incredibly impactful products when you consider the effects of COVID, long COVID, and other respiratory diseases. We had Dovetail Electric Aviation, who are creating nil-emission electric planes to fly across regional cities in Australia. And we had Magic Valley, who were creating lab-grown, cultivated meat, which has helped solving the global food shortage crisis. This actually this summit in Nanjing, was part of a big delegation we had with the mayor of Melbourne, actually, in the city of Melbourne, who came to China on a 10-day visit. And we got to spend some time in Tianjin. You'll see a picture of me with the mayor here, where we celebrated the Melbourne and Tianjin 45-year anniversary of being sister cities, to show really the long-term collaboration that's taken place between Australia and China. And I somehow made it onto TV, Chinese TV, which was definitely not something that was on my bucket list, but was a cool experience. I've also been very grateful to collaborate with the HiCool team as part of the HiCool Entrepreneurship competition in the last year. So again, after visiting HiCool and their offices here in March, I've been able to help connect Australian startups that want to go global with the competition. We didn't get any in the finals of the final ceremony that we saw on Thursday this year, but confident in the future years we'll have some Australian companies as finalists and hopefully winners in future HiCool competitions. I work globally with a real focus on China, partly because the Australia-China relationship is such a fantastic one and so many opportunities between those 2 countries. Australia is known for having high-quality research. We've got some of the greatest universities across the world, especially in areas like deep tech and biotech and health. We struggle to commercialize that research. We're actually down in the 60s and 70s across the world in terms of research commercialization. We also have some amazing, really great early stage ventures, great entrepreneurs, and we have some great founders of businesses, but we struggle to often get them funded. We struggle to get them a big enough audience. We struggle to really get them to scale and grow their business. China's got those solutions. It's got the manufacturing capability. It's got the market to support scaling ventures, and the capital exists. This is why it's an awesome relationship between Australia and China, and one that I'm going to keep promoting. And here are the few of the areas that I mentioned that Australia is really strong in: biotech, health, energy, green tech, and digital economy. My final message to you, it's one of my quotes I love to tell everyone. I think the world is a jigsaw and the more pieces you put together, the clearer the bigger picture becomes. So I challenge you all as innovators, emerging entrepreneurs, ecosystem builders, investors, to think globally, think about collaboration, and how we can solve the world's problems together as you innovate. Thank you. Kishi.